Okay, hi. This is Randall Davidson, and I'm speaking to our Composers Online Institute members and a guest speaker, David Besonen, who is a graduate and an alum of the Junior Composers Institute that happens as a residential camp on most years, not this year, but most years. Um, and I can tell you a couple of things about David as an introduction, and I'm not going to go on too long, David. But he is one of the composers we had very early on who was fairly advanced at a very young age, started composing primarily for piano. He's taking, with his piano teacher was composing music and started writing for instruments. And he hit the ground running at Junior Composers. When he came, he was ready to start writing for instruments, and we had a really instant connection. So a lot of the composers who are on this Zoom session are exactly like you, David. They've had a lot of piano compositions, and now they're writing for not just acoustic instruments, but they're also blending those acoustic instruments onto DAWs and with virtual instruments as well. And so I thought it'd be really helpful to have somebody who's been on this path of working in DAWs, working with acoustic instruments, but starting out primarily on piano lessons. Could you give us a little background? Let's give it up for David Besonen. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Randall. Yeah, I can give you a little background. So, as Randall said, my name's David. I first attended this camp when I was in 7th grade. So that was 7 years ago right now. Yeah, 2013. I remember first time at Composers Camp was a little scary because I was young, but the amount of growth and the amount of stuff I learned just from working with a bunch of new people on something I've been doing for a while, it was amazing, and it's influenced what I do to this day. So right now I am a sophomore in college, about to start my junior year, and I am going to school for computer science, but I'm also going to school for music technology, and we'll kind of see what I do there. But like Randall said, I started writing when I was in about first grade, so 6 years old. I wrote only piano stuff until I got to Junior Composers, and then I started writing, I think my first piece, it was a weird instrumentation. I think it was for piano, clarinet, violin, and saxophone, which I'd never done before, but yeah, it helped me get outside the box, outside my comfort zone. And since then, I've worked a lot with DAWs. The one I like is Logic. That's what I use all the time. And then when I need to write stuff out on manuscript, I use Sibelius. But yeah, I'm going to show you a few things today, and we'll give it back to Randall.
What school are you attending?
Oh, I'm going to the University of Nebraska-Lincoln.
Okay. And why did you pick that school?
So I picked that school for a lot of reasons. One of them was the financials. It offers great scholarships. But the other thing is music was really important to me in a school. If I wasn't going to go to school for music, the school needed to have opportunities to still be involved, even though I wasn't a major. And that's exactly what I found at Nebraska. Like I said, I'm a major in computer science, which is in the engineering school. But I've been able to be a part of every ensemble that I want to at the school, as long as you audition and work hard. A lot of places are switching to that sort of model, so you can be as involved as you want. But that was a major factor for me.
What ensembles are you in?
So I'm in the graduate doctoral jazz orchestra.
Wow.
I'm in a jazz combo. I'm in a saxophone classical ensemble, and then I'm in a super sax jazz group, which is like a jazz band but only saxophones. So yeah, many pots my hands are dipping.
And getting into computer science, did you have any advantages, or did you learn things in doing music that made it easier for you to sort of adapt and move forward in computer science?
Absolutely. And I thought about this a lot, and I've talked about it with people too, but there is some neurological thing that goes on where gifted musicians oftentimes have I don't know, some predisposition to math or logic thinking, which is a lot of what computer science was about. And I'll never forget, I was interviewing for an internship this past fall, and when I told the interviewer that I was a musician, he kind of smiled, and I asked why, and he says, because all my best software developers are musicians from like first grade. And I thought that was really cool. And so we had a chat similar to this one, but yeah.
So what were you doing that was computer related when you were young?
Um, not a ton. I mean, I've always liked computers. I've always played computer games. I'm a big gamer. That's what happened to me in quarantine. But um, as far as music goes, I've used DAWs since I was, I don't know, elementary school. I've been around computers my whole life, and then once I started using Logic, um, it wasn't too hard to figure out how to use it. It was just figuring out what I could create with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering if you could describe a project that you've done recently that you might be able to show us an example of.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. So we've had a lot of time during this quarantine, and one project I decided to work on was actually a rather large multi-instrumental thing that I think would be a lot easier to show you than describe. So let me make that happen here. If I do this, then you should also be able to hear it. See what's going on here.
If it started music so far,
I
you
haven't pressed play. I'm just sitting on the YouTube screen.
got
You
it.
guys able to see that?
Got it. Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so everybody, this is a song I wrote. It's called "Few More Days," and I made it in Logic, and I'll just go ahead and play it. Hopefully, this works.
Claps, tambourine, bass, synthesizer, Rhodes piano, and
Yeah.
special disco lighting. I want to say congratulations on that. I don't know how you pulled that off.
Oh, thank you.
First of all, I think it would be helpful. First of all, congratulations. That was really terrific.
Sounds amazing.
It really does. And it's so professional, and you had to do it in March, I think, or April.
Mm-hmm.
When did you finish it?
So that video was uploaded May 1st. I finished writing the piece about a week before, but then the videoing took a while.
How long did it take you? And how did you do it?
Sure. So the videoing itself, it probably took 2 or 3 hours of just like shooting stuff on my phone. Like it was just with a tripod in my room here. And once I got all those videos done, then I upload them on my computer, and then I use Adobe Premiere to edit everything.
Mhm.
And that part probably took 5 or 6 hours, which I spread out through multiple days.
Right.
Yeah, it was one of the more intensive things I've done. So
When you have the time,
when I have the time, exactly.
you could get a lot done, and it
It's
makes
true.
it's just there's more. It's very time consuming, though. I think from what you're saying is it happened quickly, but you were really intensely working on this for a week or so.
Yep, it was, and it's the sort of thing I've looked at quarantine. Well, obviously bad circumstances. I think it's been a blessing for a lot of musicians, at least. Never in my life have I had a time, or probably will have a time like now, where I've been forced to sit inside and do something productive, which is the only
Make
way I
music.
was able to do this. Yep.
Are you doing computer science as intensely as you are music?
Yeah. Now I am. I was just telling Randall I started my job, and that's a lot of computer science for most of the day. But
Got it.
afterwards, I can still work on music and stuff.
All right, so I'd like to turn it over and see if there's any questions from the rest of the members of this Zoom session. Did you guys have any comments or questions?
I wanted to say, so I got in here late. I don't know if anyone's commented on this already, but David, your voice is pretty quiet and hard to hear. I don't know if anyone else is experiencing that.
I am.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Hard to hear, David.
I can turn that up. Is this better?
Yeah, that's way better.
Very
Okay.
better, thanks.
Sorry about that.
Did you have any? Yeah.
Since I got here late, could you guys, could someone just give a very short description of what this is and what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I can. So my name is David. I'm not sure how late you got here, but I am a alumni of Junior Composers. I was in it 7 years ago. And I've been invited on this morning to kind of talk about some of the digital stuff I've been doing with music since then. And so what we just watched here was a project I worked on earlier on in quarantine. It's a piece I wrote, and then a video I threw together. And so now you're up to speed.
And you were
Okay,
able,
cool. Thank you. It was very good. I liked it a lot.
Oh, thank you very
I was
much.
there just when the video started. Thank you. It was great. Anyway.
Thank you.
and you were here for, I think, 3 years. Is that right, David?
I think it was 2.
2? Okay.
Yep.
And you started very early as a piano student. That's how you got started composing. You are at University of Nebraska in Lincoln.
Yep.
And both my brothers were born in Lincoln,
Hey.
because my dad was going to school there. So I know the city pretty well.
There you go.
Um,
Nice place.
yeah, it is a nice place.
Mhm.
And I think the purpose of the video was just to give you an idea that this is within reach. It's not easily within grasp. It's not going to happen for most of you right away. And I'd like to talk a little bit with David about the distance you had to travel from what you were able to do when you were just going into high school to this point, which is really only about 5 or 6 years.
Yep.
So
Yep,
talk
absolutely.
about what steps you had to go through to get to where you are.
Okay. Yep. So when I was your guys' age, I'm assuming you guys are around where I was when I was in junior composers. I wasn't able to do any of this. I didn't even really know this existed, and that was a lot of it for me. But I'll get to that in a second. When I was entering high school, a lot of the composition I was writing was done through MuseScore. I don't know if you guys have used MuseScore. But it's just a notation software, and I would be writing piano pieces, solo piano, maybe 1 or 2 instruments. I also play saxophone, which I forgot to mention, but sometimes I'd write for those 2, and then I would never film myself. I didn't really know how to record myself. I wanted to, but the biggest thing for me was that I simply didn't know that what you guys just watched, I didn't know that stuff existed. And the only reason I was able to put together what you just saw was by branching out, listening, watching other musicians from around the world do that. And then I got to sit down with myself and say, okay, I want to do that. How do I get to do that? So this is where I would recommend, if you don't know who Jacob Collier is, I know there's a lot of opinions on him and his music, but what I just did there, I learned by watching stuff like him and others as well. And so, yeah, nothing to what I just did was I able to do 6 years ago, but by watching a lot of YouTube, I was able to sort of get into it a little bit, piece by piece at least.
Tell us a little bit about Jacob Collier then.
Sure. So Jacob Collier, if you don't know, he lives in the UK. He's about 23, so he's still very young, but he's a prodigy, brilliant musician. He has heavy jazz backgrounds, but as a child, he was an opera singer, so great voice too. He's a multi-instrumentalist in that he can play just about everything. And a lot of his videos are what you just saw of me, but like raised to a degree of 10. And so I look at him as very inspirational. His harmonic and melodic knowledge and just music theory in general, if you listen to some of his interviews, the things I've learned from that are amazing. I'd compare it to if you were a physicist listening to Einstein when you were little, like the level to which your mind was blown afterwards. That's kind of what I get from him. So if you have a spare moment, you won't regret it if you just kind of type him into YouTube. But yeah, he's expanded my mind of what it is you can do with software nowadays.
You started alluding to the fact that you just started watching YouTube, and were you getting lessons, or were you doing this on your own?
I was doing this on my own. At the time, I took piano lessons and saxophone lessons up through high school, so that is how I became a better musician, performance-wise and whatnot. But I wasn't taking any lessons in like Adobe Premiere or how to use Logic. A lot of it was just trying stuff out. And so a lot of my earlier on Logic stuff, it sounds much different than what we just listened to. Some would say it doesn't sound as good. And me, I'm a harsh critic of myself. I have high standards for my music. It wasn't nearly as good as what I just showed you. But at the time, I was very proud of what I was doing. And so that's something I really like about using Logic, about using this software, because every time you do a project, just try something new and you will be very proud of what you did. And then years later, once you get here, you'll look back on that stuff and you'll realize, wow, this has just been a lot of fulfillment along the way. There's really not any disappointment with where you're at.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you look back at earlier work, and you're talking only about 7 years or 6, 5, 4 years ago, you can cover a lot of ground based on how much time you've invested into the work. But it's not like, and I'm thinking of my own experience, it's not as though you can be ashamed of the work before, but it's just you're growing.
Right.
And as you grow, you're always pushing forward. So one of the challenges I think for anybody is to really be setting up the demands for yourself and then putting the work in. Nothing else can be substitute for you have to do the work. And have you found that now that you're working full time that you are doing much less music?
Compared to earlier on in quarantine when my job hadn't started yet, yeah, I'm doing less, but it's not much less. I've just had to be more intentional with the time I spend on it, and I think that's going to be a theme throughout my entire life, and then your guys' life too, once we enter careers and adulthood in the late 20s. Yeah, just kind of chunking out spaces where you can be creative during the day.
Right.
I think it's really important.
Okay, so now are you recording regularly? Are you putting that on YouTube? How are you making your stuff available to, and who listens to you? There are millions and millions and millions of musicians. They're all creating. Do you find, how are you sharing what you do?
Sure. So right now I'm actually working on an album of other music I've written during the quarantine. This is just one of the songs that I completed. But the ways I share it are YouTube. That's primarily where I put most things. I've also made a SoundCloud where people can just download the app and go listen to anything for free. And probably the biggest place I share stuff is just on my Instagram, where I post snippets of these videos and then tell them to go watch somewhere else. But once I get this album up, then I'm going to try to start putting things on iTunes and Spotify and Apple Music so that people can listen more conveniently on their phone.
Do you have a lot of people who follow what you're doing?
Yeah, I have. I mean, I think it's a lot. Obviously, by some big musician standards, it's probably not too many at all. But I've got a couple thousand, I'd say, go listen to something on one of these platforms every time I put it out.
And you're cross linking and saying go listen over here and over here. So the plan is to create landing pages where your content is, and then to promote it on social media and try to get. This is how most everybody is working.
Yep.
And a couple thousand is not shabby at all.
Well, thank you.
I would not say, oh, that's too bad. You only have 2,000 people following you, but I think it's part of the issue is what motivates you. Are you motivated first to, I guess I'm asking you a chicken and the egg question, but are you first motivated to get an audience and then you create, or are you motivated to create and then you get an audience?
It's definitely the second one. I don't create for views. That's always cool, validation, and of course I want people to hear my music. I make stuff. My goal is to make stuff that makes people happy. But yeah, I create first, and then we see what happens from there.
I think it's important to hear that, and you can't hear it enough. Even at elderly age, it's important to remember. And I'm talking about me, not anybody else. It's important to remember what motivates you.
Yep.
Why are you doing this? Putting the chicken before the egg, so that you know, okay, if no one is interested in your music, you are interested in your music.
Right.
And that's really what started it. So you have 2,000 people. You're out on the internet. One of the things, I know that you know where I'm going to be going with this question, but what sort of interaction are you getting from people who are just listening and from other musicians?
Absolutely. So I'll tell an experience. So early on in this quarantine, I submitted a song. It was a cover of another artist's song to that artist's cover contest. So essentially what happened is he posted a video on Instagram and he said, all right, all the musicians out there, I want you to make a cover of this and then upload it and tag me to it. And so I really like this guy. His name's Masego, and I covered his song and I posted a video about it. And because I tagged him, he ended up sharing that video on his profile, and he's got a couple 100,000 people that listen to his music. So then I got thousands of people that came and watched my video, listened to my song, and gave me amazing feedback. And yeah, there was a very cool interaction that sparked out of that. There was another individual. Her name is, she goes by Little Green, but her name is Amy, and she lives in Australia. And she also submitted a song to this cover challenge. The song got shared on this guy's page, and I saw it, and I really liked her rendition of the same thing that I did, because we took the same idea and we went completely different directions with it. And I thought her way of doing it was super cool. So I sent her a message, and I basically said that, and then she sent one back that it would be very cool to write a song together. So we actually ended up doing that, which I thought was really cool, because that would not have been possible without any of the tech stuff that both of us do, the software, specifically Logic. But I can write a piece of music with someone in Australia. So I've never done that before, but it was really cool.
Does she write music that's similar to yours, the musical language?
I would say so. Yeah, both her and I, we have a very jazz flavor. And I also didn't mention this before, but I love jazz. I've been in jazz bands for a while. It's my favorite genre. And so she is a vocalist primarily. She plays multiple instruments, but
Yeah.
her and I both have a similar sound.
So there was some simpatico feeling between the two of you. This wasn't somebody playing a didgeridoo in Australia, and then
No.
you said, yeah, I like what your take on this piece. It's
Right.
very weird. I wrote jazz, you wrote didgeridoo, but there was some similar background and interests. Did you finish a song with her?
I did. Yeah, and I could actually show that one too if
Great.
you wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's listen to it. Tell us a little bit more of the background and the process of what you're working great distances. What was the step by step?
So first of all, can you see
Oh
the
yes.
Logic screen? Okay,
Oh
cool.
yes. Oh yeah.
So the step by step, after I DM'd her on Instagram and we both decided it'd be cool to write a piece. The piece you see in front of you here, I was already working on. There was a lot less to it visually than what you see here. I hadn't written as much of it, but I thought that it would sound cool with vocals, and I didn't exactly know how I wanted vocals to be a part of it. I didn't even have a melody really written, besides what I'll show you here in a little bit. And so I sent it to her and I said, I think this would sound cool, but I don't really know where a vocal would fit in. And she was cool with that. She took it. She added vocals. She wrote the lyrics. She sang along with the melody I already gave her. And then she added even more after that. And that sort of blew my mind, because she was able to take the work of someone else and then make it better, just by doing what she does. And I think that is so awesome. That's the first time I've ever really had such an authentic and successful collaboration with someone like that, where I've given them almost nothing.
Right.
And they've returned with like so much more.
And yet what I think you skipped over you gave yourself very short shrift. You had a DAW version of something, an idea, a notion, but you were the one who had come up with the notion and had created something for her to react to.
Yep.
So the first step in the collaboration was yours. Well, she said, I like your piece, and then responded and said, I'd like to work together on something. And you had something that you were working on at that point, and said, okay, here, I don't know how this is going to work, but here is more or less how you felt?
That's a great way of describing it. Yep.
I don't know what's going to happen. Try. And you were in a position of saying, I don't like what's going on, but you also had the ability to say, take it, let's go. And then, so did she write or did she record, or did she write something for you?
Sure. So actually, if you look on the screen here, the red,
Mhm.
all of these red bars, this is what she sent me. It was just 4 audio tracks actually, and like 2 of them were the melody that she doubled, and then the other 2 were harmonies for that. And I mean, it was kind of weird because I'd never just received audio tracks before, but it was really easy to just put them in there because she also uses DAWs. She's on Logic. She knows exactly how it works. So she knew what to send in a way that was really easy for me to just throw in to what I already had. And yeah.
So very similar to what we're doing with our projects.
Very cool.
There's, you're creating a whole bunch of electronic or digital tracks, but you're also going to be getting audio tracks from acoustic instruments. So it's her singing. It's not,
Yep.
She didn't send you digital forms. She sent it and then dropped it in. Did she give you at the very beginning a 4 count, 1 measure? How did you guys coordinate the parts?
Absolutely. So the first thing she sent back to me once I sent my file, my program here, she sent her vocals just layered on top of what I'd done. And so it wasn't balanced super well or anything, but I think what she did was she put earbuds in her ear, played what I sent her, and sang along to it. And so it was really easy for me to say, oh, okay, so that's supposed to go here. So then once I said, wow, that's amazing, can you send me just the thing you did, just the tracks that you recorded? And she sent those back. I knew exactly where to put them because what the first thing she sent was like a reference. It was like, okay, this is where I hear what I'm doing on the piece you sent me. And then I said, okay, I will do that. So
awesome. So that's a little bit different than what we're doing.
right.
She didn't write down using notation software her part. She improvised something on top of what you sent her.
Correct.
Could we listen to what you sent her and just solo those tracks?
Yep. So I'll go ahead and just mute her vocals. And yeah, so this is what I
Did you have all of those tracks or did you add tracks?
Are you talking about what I have here or adding?
What did you send her the first time that she was improvising on?
Oh, the first time I sent her, I don't think I had this in there. Other than that, everything here is
Everything?
about what I sent her, and I just expanded on some of the saxophone parts.
Awesome. Let's listen to this. I wanted to see what she was really responding to the first time she heard it.
Of course. All right. Oh, wait.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna need to make sure that we actually have sound here, so bear with me one moment.
No problem. I think it's particularly interesting in a process to get in the cockpit with the players, the people who are making stuff, and see it in that process when you don't have her parts. You sent something to her. What was she listening to the first time?
Correct. Yep. And sorry guys, I'm just gonna.
That's fine.
Close and reopen what we have.
Oh, we do this all the time. We forget to click the little button in the left-hand corner.
It's funny how often that can fix the problem too. It's just, I don't know why, but I don't know.
Well,
when stuff gets better, maybe this will get better too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys been having a good time at camp this summer? You are the first people to do it completely online. So how's that?
Well, I think in some ways we did a bit of this. Eric had conceived of a different approach for camp last year. Eric, could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, hi David.
Hey.
Amazing job. I'm really enjoying this. I'm literally just scrolling through Instagram, so hold on. Last year, so leading up to last year, we'd always gone, as songwriters, we would go to McNally Smith and record in like a proper like old school studio where there's an engineer at this huge table and all this, and everyone would be in a room and we'd all record together. And I was like, almost everyone has a laptop now. Almost nobody goes, unless you have tons of money or amazing resources, almost everyone just makes music on their computer. Mm-hmm. So last year was the first year that I told everyone, bring your laptop, download a DAW. Let's just learn how to record and mix your own stuff on your computer. So luckily we did that last year because dun 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 COVID-19, and now we sort of had a little infrastructure to kind of transition into doing this.
That's awesome. Good planning ahead.
Yeah, no, it wasn't planning ahead. We don't do planning ahead. We just respond in the moment, improvise, and let's make it work.
Hey, that works for me. I
All
think
right.
I think I got it working now.
Excellent.
So this is what I sent her for her to do stuff with. So here we go.
I still don't hear anything.
Oh no, really?
Yeah.
Well, all right.
You might have to go into the screen sharing options and turn on like share audio.
That's what I thought I was doing.
Go over to the advanced settings because I had a problem with that, and there's an advanced setting that you can
Okay.
change.
Okay, let me
You know, David used to do this to me, so I appreciate that you're doing it to him.
The other
I appreciate that.
The other possibility, sorry, I know this is a lot of cooks in the kitchen. I think if you go up to your audio preferences in Logic, you can route to, I know some of my students have been routing it to Zoom audio.
Oh.
That's a possibility. I don't know if they downloaded something special to do that.
Well, I see the option, so let's try that. This
cool.
is great. This is great. I appreciate multiple people.
I know.
telling me what to do.
If everyone teach one, each one teach one.
Absolutely. Yep. It's a learning process. Technology, it never stops.
And we didn't know any of this on Monday, just so you know. So
Yeah, that's right. That is right.
So you guys have learned way more than I have then.
Well, come to Composers Online Institute next summer.
I will have to do that.
We'll teach you.
That would be great.
All right.
Yeah, and then it just takes a long time to initialize sometimes. I'm not
I
sure
understand.
why. I ended
That's
up
fine.
having to so I have a lot of sound libraries that I've downloaded hundreds of gigabytes worth, and I had to move them off onto an external hard drive because my laptop just doesn't have enough space.
It was saying, "Help me!"
Yep. So that's sometimes why it takes a while. Okay, third try. Let's try this again.
That's good.
we got it. Can you share your screen too?
Yes. Whoops, I thought I was doing that. Let me try that again. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Good. Okay, now I'm going to try playing again. Let's see if we can share the screen and the audio. Okay, so can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Cool. And everyone heard that, right?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, guys. So that wasn't a lot as far as instrumentation or music goes at all. And so that's why when I sent it to her, I had no idea what she'd send back. Because I knew one song of hers that she'd written. I kind of knew her style. And so purposefully, I didn't send her too much. I sent her what I had at the time just to see what she could do with it. And the results were quite amazing. If I do say so myself, she's just an amazing musician. So Randall, do you want me to play what she sent me at this point, or would you like me to wait a second?
You're muted.
Yes, please, from the top.
Okay. All right, guys. So I'll unmute her vocals here, and then I added some flute. So this is, of course, I've edited, I've engineered a lot of what she sent me since then. But this is what she sent back. I didn't change any of her notes. I didn't auto-tune her voice at all. I just added reverb and whatnot. So without further ado.
Listen to my honesty, I swear. Can you hear me? Or am I that hard to bear? Don't feel me, yeah. And my heart beats fast as you stare. Are you taking control of me? But just one look at my hopeless body falling. Kiss me, gone.
So yeah, that's what she sent back, and I was very floored.
Wow.
Right? She's
Wow. Now,
Wow.
it sounds like you took what she did vocally and then tweaked it, or was she nailing it?
She nailed all that.
Wow.
Which I know. It's just she's a very, very talented vocalist, which is what I miss a lot in my music. I've never been a singer myself, at least not like that, certainly. I've always written instrumentally. So this was the first time I was able to partner with someone that did something that I want.
When you hear you hear when she says listen,
Yep.
right in that gap, and then hits it, nails it, the vocal on top of the saxophone. That is shockingly good.
And she came up with that. Like that was her addition, which I think is really cool. So then what I have learned from that, and what I'd say to you guys, is that if you're in the position where you're the one receiving something from someone and they say just do something with it, don't be afraid to do that. Do your thing with it, because that was all her. That was all creative, and I wouldn't have thought to do that. Like I couldn't have written out a notebook worth of stuff to say, okay, I want you to do this, 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 and this to make it sound like she just sent.
David, I need to hear the rest of the song. Let's hit it.
All right, so that was the A section. Now we transition to something completely different.
effect, David. Saxophones, the oscillation. Very cool. Thank you. That's fantastic. Really, really fun.
I had a great
And
time.
she alters the piece all together, all by herself. Just having a vocalist on that makes it up, makes it a
Yep.
way better piece, I think.
Absolutely. Yep. And everything, all her harmonies and ad libs there in the B section, again, were all her. I didn't tell her to do any of that.
Wow.
And she was able to just listen, and the taste is just, yeah.
All right, we have about 5 minutes for
Okay.
questions. And I hope you have some comments or questions about what David has been talking about. We basically covered early development, then coming through JCI, then going off and keeping study while he was doing all of his studies at the University of Nebraska, or as Nebraska University, I'm sorry. And then finding a collaborator through his work that he was putting on YouTube. Did anyone have any questions or comments about the piece? Hello.
I think
Well, I
it's
have a
really cool.
Thank you.
I have a question. I was wondering, so did you compose the whole thing besides the vocals before you sent it to her, or was it just the A section and then you sent it to her and she gave you the vocals and then you made the B section and then you sent it to her and she had the vocals for that?
So I had music for the whole thing that I sent to her here, from start to finish.
Okay.
There's not as much there as when I sent to her as what you see now, because a lot of what she sent back to me gave me ideas of what I wanted to add. For instance, like, oh, flute would sound really nice with her voice, so I should put some flute in. But yeah, I sent her the whole piece when I first sent it to her.
Thanks. That's a great question.
Mm-hmm. That is.
Eric, do you want to amplify any of the things that David was talking about? Joe, Ranch Boy, Mari, Landon.
I really enjoyed it.
That's Ranch Boy.
There you go. I like the name.
I wanted to say thanks, David. And also, I was working with Ranch Boy last night, and he wrote a solo piano piece for me to play. But while I'm playing it, I'm hearing vocals. And I told him he needs to go and listen inside while he hears the recording and try to figure out what would those vocals be, because I think there's more there that he could do. And it's a creative kind of listening, what you're talking about. That your vocalist did and then you did when she sent you back stuff. That's a really important part of composing, is listening inside, being quiet and listening to where things can go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then one thing I'd say about that is that this piece took a really long time to write. And I'm the sort of person where if there's a task, like, I'd like to get it done as quick as possible. No reason to just sit there and wait. But music's one of those only things, music composition, where when she sent stuff back to me, I had to just kind of take time to listen, try out some stuff. There's a lot of things here that I deleted that you no longer see because I didn't like how they sounded. And what you see here is a product of several hours of just sitting there and trying things out, and then Command Z until it was all gone because I didn't like it, and then trying again, which I think is a little therapeutic. It's a good test in patience, because if you guys are anything like me, some people can throw out masterpieces in a day, but I take time. It's just, I've had to get to know my creative process like that.
What is your creative process? If you could give us a 1-minute summary of that.
Absolutely. Yep. So typically when I'm writing a piece, I more often than not start with a chord progression. I say, oh, I really like how these chords sound together. And then from there, I expand upon it. I'm like, okay, I need to complete this chord progression. I need to make so if I can just get an A section of chords, then now I have a foundation. I can put a melody on top of that, which is usually where it goes. And from there, I add some kind of rhythm. And then I start on the B section. And I say, okay, now that I've listened to A, what is that asking me to come up with for the next part? What would complement that? And that's kind of how I start. It's like bottom up. That's
really helpful to hear. I think a lot of people work that way.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people will start with a rhythm,
Yep.
or whatever the beat is,
Absolutely.
and that generates ideas. Sometimes starting with a melody.
Yeah.
But these are sort of elemental harmony, melody, rhythm. These are the things that sort of can spur a whole bunch of other stuff that comes from there.
Certainly. That's a great point.
I think this was fantastic, David. I don't want to shut off any other questions, but I really think we gained a lot from having you come and talk to us today, of all days. In the next 2 or 3 days, a lot of the projects that people have started in this, creative process thing is going to come to fruition. And it's interesting to hear your comment about your personality, your creative process is to get a task done. I think there are all kinds of creative processes. And one of the things that you said at the very end was to listen, to slow down, to let it think, even though we have deadlines coming up, not to rush ahead, but to listen and just take a moment and think of what you've got now is it's a very tempting to just crank it out and be done with it.
Yep.
And it's interesting to hear about the song. How long would you say from the writing process back and forth? How long did that take?
Well, once she sent me what she sent, she didn't send anything after that. So what you see here, these vocals, that was all just sent in one little Google Drive attachment.
Yeah.
And then after that is where a lot of the time went in. Several days. I think the song took about a month to write, of writing, tweaking, engineering, mastering, whatnot.
In your experience, did you find that what you wrote at Junior Composers was done when you finished it at JCI? Did you just leave it alone and move on to the next thing, or did you let it percolate for a while after JCI?
The stuff I wrote at JCI, I let be, and I did that because we worked on it for about 10 days straight, morning till night. I felt like I had given everything I could at that time in my life to make it good. And well, if I went back to any of those pieces now, I'd certainly change a ton. But I think there's also a point where you come to with a piece where you say, I know if I spent more time on this, it could get better, but I'm happy with what I have right now. Like, I'm content with that. And so that's what I've said about those pieces.
That's helpful, really helpful. I think unless there's any comments, we're done.
Right.
I would like you to unmute yourselves because I would love to hear you applaud what David has done today. He's been very generous and I think actually pretty wise. I appreciate everything you've done. Thanks, David.
Thank you so much. Thanks, guys. Thanks, David. Thanks, David. Good luck. How you guys are doing this. It's a great camp.
Thank you, guys. We're done. I will see you guys at 3 o'clock. We have a recording, getting ready for the weekend salon with Seth, and see you guys at 3 o'clock.